Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. We welcome you to our online teaching academy, Ekalaiva. Today we are going to learn the poem A Photograph of Class 11 written by Shirley Towson. Photographs capture a moment in time and also the emotions felt at the time when photograph was taken. Shirley Towson wrote the poem Photograph in memory of her dead mother. This poem is tender yet a jolting piece, which is a heart-touching poem and gives a harsh message about irreversible separation and revolves around the universal theme of loss of separation. Shirley Towson was born on 20th May 1924 in England. She was a writer, editor, came under influence of Celtic Christianity. Towson, in the poem Photograph, describes the emotions felt as she remembered the story behind the image and what it means to the poet. Now we'll move on to the line-by-line explanation of this poem. The cardboard shows me how it was when the two girl cousins went paddling, each one holding one of my mother's hands, and she, the big girl, some 12 years or so. The cardboard. Cardboard means very stiff paper. Shows me means the poet. Shows the poet how it was. It was about the photograph, an old photograph of the poet's mother which was stuck on the cardboard. When the two cousins went paddling, so the poet's mother along with her two girl cousins went paddling. Paddling means walking through shallow water. Each one holding one of my mother's hands. The mother was standing in the middle, holding her two cousins on each side. The poet's mother and her two cousins went paddling in the shallow water, and they were holding the poet's mother's hands on each side. And she, the big girl, some 12 years or so. So here she refers to the poet's mother. Okay, she, the big girl. She was the eldest among the three. Some 12 years or so. So she was, the poet's mother was 12 years old. Now we'll move on to the poetic device. The poetic device, cardboard, is an allusion. It is here, an allusion is an indirect reference to something or an object. Here the cardboard is referred. The cardboard's lack of durability hints at the lack of permanence of human life. All three stood still to smile through their hair at the uncle with the camera. A sweet face, my mother's. That was before I was born, and the sea which appears to have changed less washed their terribly transient feet. All three here, the poet's mother and the two girl cousins stood still. Still means without moving. They stood still and smiled through their hair at the uncle who clicked the photo with the camera. A sweet face, my mother's. So Her mother's face was sweet, she was young and beautiful, and this photograph was taken before the poet was born. And the sea, which appears to have changed less. Everything has changed. Since then, her mother grew up and she is no more now. The only thing which remained unchanged is the sea. And washed their terribly transient feet. Terribly is extremely. Extremely, transient, temporary. Transient feet means that is temporary, short-lived. So the sea never appears to change. But the human life is transient, temporary. It is temporary and changes with time. Now we'll move on to the poetic device. Stood still is alliteration. The consonant, the same consonant sound is repeated, and transient feet is transferred epithet. Transferred epithet means when the adjective for one noun like life is transferred to another noun like feet. It describes the lack of permanence of human life. Some 20-30 years later, she would laugh at the snapshot. See Betty and Jolly, she would say, and look how they dressed us for the beach. The sea holiday was her past, mine is her laughter. Both ride with labored ease of loss. So after some 20 or 30 years later, the poet's mother would laugh at the photograph and say that see how Betty and Dolly, how they are dressed, how their parents dressed as for this beach holiday, that is the sea holiday. The sea holiday was her past. Her means the poet's mother. Mine is her laughter. Mine means the poet. So the poet's past is her laughter, her mother's laughter. Both wry. Wry means here disappointed. Both the mother and the poet, they were disappointed and dejected over the loss, with labored ease of loss. Labored here is with great difficulty. Ease is comfort. So here both were tinged with loss. The mother had lost those happy childhood days and the poet had lost her mother. Both realized that the loss was final and they had to accept it. So now we'll move on to the poetic device. Labored ease. Labored ease is oxymoron. Oxymoron means two opposite ideas are joined here to create an effect. So labored means with great difficulty. Ease is comfort. So with great difficulty they have to come out of their loss. Now she has been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived, and of this circumstance there is nothing to say at all. Its silence silences. The poet recalls that it is nearly 12 years since her mother died. And of this circumstance, so the poet is consumed with grief uh, and left with no words to express her loss and pain. The painful silence of this situation leaves the poet speechless. So there is nothing to say at all. Its silence silences. Okay, its silence means the death of her mother. The silence of the whole situation silences the poet. Her mother is dead and she finds herself in a state where it is not possible for her to say anything. Only emptiness remains. In other words, she is left speechless. Now we will move on to the poetic device. Silence silences. Personification. Personification means giving human quality which is not human. Here, death has been bestowed with human quality. And the next one is paradox. Paradox means a statement that seems self-contradictory but in reality expresses a possible truth. Alliteration. The sound, the same consonant sound is repeated in the line. Thank you, children. I hope you would have enjoyed this poem.